The year was 1987. Deep within the unforgiving expanse of the Canadian Arctic, nestled against a jagged, ice-choked coastline, stood Station Echo 7. It wasn't a town, not in the traditional sense. It was a scientific outpost. 8 souls, a crew of climatologists, geologists, and communication specialists, dedicated to studying the Earth's most extreme northern reaches. Their purpose was research. Their reality was isolation. Their only consistent link to the world beyond the perpetual twilight of winter was a temperamental shortwave radio. Life at Echo 7 was a rhythm of quiet endurance. Days were marked by the hum of the diesel generator, the clatter of scientific instruments, and the shared warmth of a communal meal. Outside, the world was a canvas of white, an indifferent, silent sentinel stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction. They were accustomed to the stark beauty, the biting wind, the endless, star-dusted night. They were prepared for almost anything the Arctic could throw at them. Almost. Every day, precisely at 16 Zulu, Dr. Elias Thorne, the station's lead scientist and communications officer, would key the microphone. He'd transmit their daily weather observations, equipment status, and a brief report on their findings to the main research facility, hundreds of kilometers south. It was a routine, a comforting constant in an otherwise unpredictable environment. On the afternoon of November 17th, the routine began as always. The static crackled, then cleared, and Thorne's voice, calm and measured, filled the airwaves. He rattled off the usual data: temperature, wind speed, ice thickness. But then a subtle shift occurred, a flicker of hesitation, a pause that stretched just a beat too long. Conditions. Deteriorating, he began, his voice now edged with something uncharacteristic, a tremor, a nascent unease. The static, which had momentarily subsided, returned with a vengeance, tearing at his words. Severe localized atmospheric anomaly, visibility near zero, something outside. The receiving operator at the main facility, a grizzled veteran named Miller, leaned closer to his console. He'd heard Thorne's voice for years, a rock-steady presence. This was different. Echo 7, repeat last transmission, Miller cut in, his own voice tight with concern. Thorne's reply was fragmented, battling through a sudden onslaught of white noise. Not right. The readings. It's moving. Too fast. Toward the station. There was a distinct change in Thorne's tone now, a raw, escalating fear that sliced through the interference. Miller could hear it in the frantic rhythm of his breathing. Then, a sharp, metallic screech, like a microphone being dropped or scraped against a hard surface. It was followed by a guttural, desperate cry, not fully human, abruptly cut short. And then, absolute, profound silence. The shortwave frequency went dead, utterly, chillingly, irrevocably silent. Miller waited. He called. He waited longer. Only the hiss of empty air responded. He knew, with a cold certainty that seeped into his bones, that something terrible had just happened at Station Echo 7. The alarm was raised, but the Arctic, in November, does not easily yield its secrets. A rescue team, comprised of 2 seasoned bush pilots and a medical technician, was mobilized. Their journey was a brutal odyssey against the elements, blinding blizzards, sub-zero temperatures that threatened to freeze fuel lines, and an endless, featureless whiteout that swallowed horizons. For 3 days, they pushed through the unforgiving wilderness, guided only by coordinates and a desperate hope. The radio remained silent. The silence was a heavy shroud, pressing down on their small aircraft, whispering premonitions of what they might find. When they finally reached the coordinates, the pilots circled low, peering through the swirling snow. And there it was, Station Echo 7, seemingly undisturbed, a cluster of prefabricated buildings, half buried in pristine snowdrifts. The generator, miraculously, was still running. Lights glowed faintly from the windows, a beacon of normalcy in a landscape of dread. There were no signs of structural damage, no telltale marks of an avalanche or a major storm. The exterior was as it should be, save for the eerie, untouched blanket of fresh snow around the entrance, implying no one had entered or exited in days. With heavy hearts, the team landed their ski-equipped plane a kilometer away, then approached on snowmobiles. The crunch of their boots on the packed snow was the only sound. They found the main entrance unlocked. The interior was warm, illuminated. A low hum filled the air. What they discovered inside was not the chaos of a struggle, nor the grim scene of an accident. It was a perfectly preserved moment, a still life frozen in time. In the mess hall, half-eaten plates of dehydrated beef stew sat on a table, forks resting beside them. A game of chess was unfinished, pieces poised mid-move. An open scientific journal lay on a desk in the lab, a pen next to it, as if the writer had merely stepped away for a moment. Personal effects were everywhere, coats hanging by the door, boots neatly lined, wallets and watches on bedside tables. Nothing was taken. No one had packed. There was no indication of a hasty departure, or any departure at all. In the radio room, the microphone lay on the floor, still connected to the console, just as Miller had heard it drop. The logbook was open, its last entry a frantic, illegible scribble that trailed off the page, a final desperate burst of energy. But the room was empty. Like every other room in Station Echo 7, 8 people vanished, without a trace. Investigators scoured the scene. They found no footprints in the surrounding snow, only the untouched, wind-sculpted drifts that had accumulated since the last storm. No signs of struggle, no blood, no tracks of large animals, no evidence of a gas leak or chemical spill that might have caused a mass hallucination or sudden flight. Every conventional explanation was systematically debunked. An avalanche would have left debris. Animal attacks would have left bodies, or at least blood. Mass psychosis leading to a spontaneous, suicidal march into a blizzard seemed unthinkable for 8 trained, rational individuals, especially when their personal effects suggested no intention to leave. Hostile human intervention was equally implausible. Who could approach such a remote, secure facility undetected? And why leave everything untouched, taking only the people themselves? The official report, filed months later, concluded with the unsettling phrase, "disappearance without a trace." The case remains open, gathering dust in some forgotten archive. Station Echo 7 was eventually abandoned, left to the elements, swallowed by the ceaseless Arctic winter, a silent monument to an unsolved enigma. What happened in those final, static-laced moments before Dr. Thorne's chilling cry was abruptly silenced? What force, tangible or otherwise, could so utterly erase 8 human lives from the face of the earth, leaving behind only the echo of a final, desperate warning and an impossible, profound silence?